What's going on? This is Big G from G Riders and welcome to another episode of Testing Rides. Today, I'm going to be testing out the 2020 Mercedes-Benz GLC300. Welcome to the 2020 Mercedes GLC. So the GLC was introduced for the 2016 model year. This is one of the first few Mercedes models that adapted the new Mercedes naming scheme. So now, because you know how there is the A-Class, the B-Class, the C-Class, the E-Class, and so on and so forth. So now, when they introduced this one in 2016, also I think they made that change also around that. They also made that change with all the rest of the models during that time. So you would know this is the C-Class based model because it is a GLC. GL standing for SUV, C standing for the C-Class, which is like the compact luxury car sedan or the mid-size luxury car sedan or whatever, something like that. So this is the C-Class version of the SUV from Mercedes, which it's very helpful because there's a lot of German companies are doing like these alphanumeric models, and it makes sense that this is just like the SUV C-Class, if you will. So the GLC replaced the GLK from previous generation, and the GLK was like a mini G-Wagon. So it looked kind of like a mini G-Wagon. So it was like this C-Class size of SUV, except it was a lot boxier. And then when they introduced this first generation of the GLC, they made it more round to look like the rest of the Mercedes models, because Mercedes used to have very different models, very different looks depending on which model it is. Now they all kind of look the same, look like they're from the same family, which I kind of like. I think that's pretty cool. So 2020 is a mid-cycle refresh for the Mercedes GLC. So the GLC got some small updates to the front fascia, the rear fascia, and some small interior bits, but we'll go through that when we do the walk around of the vehicle. So this is the 2020 Mercedes GLC300, and the GLC comes in 5 different variations. So this one being the 300, this is the 4-cylinder turbo. Then there is the GLC350E, which is kind of a, I believe that's a plug-in hybrid or electric model of the GLC. Then there is the twin turbo V6 GLC43 AMG, and then there is the big boy GLC63 that has the twin turbo V8 that has, I think, 467 horsepower, because you can only get the S in the coupe for 2020 model year, which is kind of interesting to be honest. But nevertheless, the GLC comes in a bunch of different configurations. So this one is the second one down. So the first one, of course, is the GLC300 that is rear-wheel drive only, and this is the 4matic model. So all GLC300s come standard with an inline 4-cylinder, making 255 horsepower and 273 foot-pounds of torque. Since this is a luxury SUV, yeah, it's a compact luxury SUV, but it's still a luxury SUV and a Mercedes. It weighs just over 4,000 pounds, but despite that weight, it does manage to get 21 in the city and 28 on the highway, which is still pretty good considering how much this thing weighs and the decent power. I mean, like, the horsepower and torque kind of makes this thing go 0 to 60 in about 6.1 seconds, which is not too bad for the basic engine. And honestly, those fuel economy numbers aren't bad in period, just because they're kind of like what the average for this class is. I really want to see this class kind of get into like the low 30s in terms of the fuel economy with the all-wheel drive model. So, you know, that's where some of those hybrid systems are going to start coming into play in future models. So this is the 2020 Mercedes GLC 300 4matic, and the GLC 4matic starts at about $44,500. And it comes with standard with lots of new features, and again, we'll talk about that in the walk-around portion of the video. But this particular one is that $44,500 model. This is a base model 4matic. This does not have any extra options on it, so this model is the base model. So, you know, I think it's pretty well equipped to be the base model of the base of the car. But kind of with that being said, let's take a look around the vehicle, because all the updates have to do mainly with the exterior and interior of the car. So, all right, let's take a look around before we head on the road here. Welcome to the walk-around portion of the 2020 Mercedes GLC300. Let's go ahead and start here on the front, because, as I said before, this is a facelift model this is the facelift year for the 2020 GLC. And one big thing that changed was these headlights. So now, standard on all GLCs is headlights that have LED turn signals and daytime running lights. Let's go ahead and show you the signals here. And I'll show you those daytime running lights and headlights in a clip following this one. So walking around, the front is slightly different. It looks more like, it looks a little bit more like the GLA did last year for like the outgoing model, but I think it looks pretty good. Like the biggest difference is with this front is these headlights, and I'm glad that they finally added LED headlights as standard equipment on GLCs, considering these cars like $45,000. So at least gave me some better headlights from factory. Walking around the side, the GLC300 is basically the same as it was before. Didn't really change to me the body lines or anything like that. Mostly, it's just slight changes. But if we come down to the taillights, the taillights are very different too. So if you look here, instead of having one singular taillight, it's more of a it's like a quad LED thing, and I'll put a quad LED taillight type of situation here. I think it looks way better than the previous one did. I'll put a clip of what it looks like on. Here, I think it looks way better. And I love the Mercedes backup camera. So the backup camera is tucked up under there. It's like a little cover you'll see right there. And it flips out when you put the car to reverse. I think that looks pretty awesome. So coming around to the other side of the Mercedes GLC300, the rest of it is pretty much the same. I think the new GLC looks good. I think the GLC is one of the more stylish of crossovers of this size. But let's go ahead and take a look at the inside, because there's some big changes on the interior. So go ahead and unlock the car. So the car does have the new Mercedes key. Mirrors unfold when you unlock the car there. Also, since it's the base model, it doesn't have keyless access. It doesn't have the comfort access keyless go system in the car. So welcome to the interior of the 2020 Mercedes GLC300. Take a look around the interior. It's pretty similar to the outgoing model, except this right here, this new steering wheel. So it has the modern steering wheel that has these two like little touch pads on here. This one on the left controls your gauge cluster. This one on the right controls the infotainment system. And now this has a wider screen also in the middle. So one of the new features for the 2020 model year is the simple fact that you now can get a digital gauge cluster in the Mercedes GLC. And I think I think that's really awesome that they offer that as an option. Of course, this one doesn't have it because it's a base model, but I think it's really cool that's an option. And they did some slight changes to the gauge cluster, even the stock one here for the 2020 model year. And now instead of having like the little removable button that you may have to put the key in, it now has the new permanent push button starter. Let's get a little bit closer on that here. I think that looks pretty awesome. Looks pretty dope at night when it's lit up. So let's go ahead and turn on the car. So this is the new infotainment system on the new 2020 Mercedes GLC. As you can see, it does support Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and that's all standard. This has it's pretty seamless and easy to use. Like, it's pretty quick. Pretty seamless and easy to use. It's pretty quick. And also now, instead of a scroll wheel, you have like a little touchpad down here that you use to control everything on here, and I think that's pretty cool. And also you have like your drive select mode, your manual mode, the auto start stop off, your volume, your power button for your radio, and then your traction control. And I believe you would have some steering adjustments here if this was a higher, not some steering but some suspension modes if this was a higher model right there. And then down here you got your telephone, your nav, since the base it doesn't have any of that stuff, radio media, your car settings, and then your searches, your basic menu, your quick access stuff there that brings up this little menu that you can just some favorites basically. So that's pretty cool. So this does have the new infotainment system, the MBX system, that you can say, "Hey Mercedes, hey Mercedes,
how may I help you?"
So you can do that command, and you can do different functions in the car. I think that's pretty awesome. So coming around the other side, I love the design of the dashboard. I think that looks pretty good, and I think it makes it look less glued onto the dash like a lot of the Mercedes products used to look. I think this is they did some slight updates and made it look way better up here in the front. Moving over to the side here, you got your basic controls, the seat controls, your heated seats, and your speaker grills. It's like your standard issue Mercedes stuff, and then you got your door lock things, which look like they came out of a 2001 Ford Explorer. But I'm not gonna get on that pretty hard. I'm not gonna get on that aggressively, but there it is. Also, the interior of the 2020 GLC300 is pretty spacious. Like, it's plenty of room in here. I got plenty of head space, plenty of shoulder room. Like, the back seat is not great, and the cargo room is not great. It's decent, but it's not great. I mean, the whole point of this type of SUV is not to have a ton of cargo space. Like, this is a compact size crossover that you will probably use to take around your family, but this is definitely the car that you buy before you have a big family. Like, maybe you might have one kid or a dog or something like that, or you know, you just want a nice SUV instead of buying the sedan. So this is kind of where that car sits in Mercedes lineup. Typically, if you had a family or you like a bigger car, you definitely go up to the GLE or the GLS and so on and so forth. But this is kind of the more smaller of the end in terms of crossovers, and I think it's really nice. You know, especially this one being almost $45,000, being a base model. It comes with some decent amount of features. I would kind of miss having a sunroof, but I believe that's like $1,000 option that you can add on here. And I think that if you're buying one of these, you probably should be. Honestly, just because having a big sunroof in cars, like especially a luxury car, is really nice to have, and it helps with resale value. So let's go ahead and take this bad boy out on the road and see how it drives. Welcome to the driving portion of the 2020 Mercedes GLC300. We hop on the road in this thing. The first thing that you notice is how smooth and quiet this SUV is. I mean, this is a true testament to just kind of what luxury SUVs are like now, because it's so quiet, it's so comfortable. All you hear is a little bit of tires and not much road noise. So, and then when you floor it, it's decently quick, actually. Like, you know, with this having 255 horsepower and 273 foot-pounds of torque, it does have a respectable 0 to 60 time of 6.1 seconds, and I think that makes this, you know, that's kind of what all like SUVs of this size are like now. They all are they're decently quick, even though it's a lot of the times the slowest variant of the model that, like the base engine that's in the cars, which is pretty good. So, you know, how does this thing drive? Well, the Mercedes GLC300 drives really nice. Like, so let me get this out the way first and foremost. This is in no way, shape, or form the sportiest version of this car. This is the most luxurious, comfortable version of this car. So steering response is decent. Like, it has a decent like steering feel to it, but it's not like sporty steering. Suspension is nice and comfortable and compliant, but it's not sporty or nothing like that. You definitely feel body roll. You definitely feel a body roll when you go into corners, because this does not have the air suspension, nor is this is the sport suspension. There's also not a whole lot of grip in this car, just because, I mean, this isn't, like, again, this isn't the sportiest version of this SUV. This is the more comfortable model of the SUV. So as a nice, comfortable luxury SUV, this SUV is excellent in terms of that. So, you know, you can get yourself in a nice, comfortable position when getting in this car pretty quickly. Like, you know, get that seat back. The seats are decently comfortable. It has the nice thigh support, which I like. And I kind of like the seat controls being over here on the door instead of on the actual seat itself. I think that's just another level of a luxury that Mercedes kind of have been doing for years now. And I'm actually really surprised that a lot more luxury car companies aren't doing that with their seats. And I think that even on the low models of cars, just like this particular one, they do that. And I really like it. Visibility out the 2020 Mercedes GLC is pretty good. Like, you sit nice and low in the car. You got a pretty nice greenhouse out of the windshield. The back is okay. Like, you have blind spot monitoring as that fail safe, which is always nice to have. And also, I've driven a lot of the crossovers this size in the luxury class. Like, you know, I've driven the X3, I've driven the Q5, I've driven the Volvo XC60, and I've driven basically all of them that are in this class. And this is one of my favorite classes of SUVs, because this is now the class of car that everybody buys instead of the sedan variant. So instead of going into the dealership and buying a C-Class, most people are going into the dealership to buy one of these now. Like, there's still going to be some people that want to buy a C-Class who want a sedan, but most of the people that are looking at that type of luxury experience are looking for a small crossover like this. And it makes it so that, you know, they have to put even more into these crossovers now than they used to. Because before they used to just like say it, they kind of used to kind of phone it in, make them drive a little bit clunky, and you know, not really great driving cars. But now with everybody going in to buy these type of crossovers, the companies that are making these luxury crossovers, they have to make very good cars. And this Mercedes is a very good car. Like, it's practical, it's easy to use, it's easy to operate. There's a couple confusing things. Like, when I first got in here, it took me a minute to kind of get used to the MUBX system, because it's very different than the one that I remember, like it having the little wheel and everything, and now it's to a touchpad. Also, like, it has the climate controls, as you can see from my window camera here. The climate controls are all like right there, and I think I'm glad there's hard buttons for things, and I'm glad there's hard knobs in the center for the volume control and things like that. It's just, you know, once you get used to it, it takes a minute to get used to. So basically, yeah, like, I mean, that's the only issue I had when I got in here. But besides that, you know, this car is not a hard car to live with. I only had a chance to drive this car for about 24 hours, and I absolutely love it. Like, it's an easy car to live with. It's an easy car to daily drive, and that's the point of these cars. And that's kind of the thing, to where, like, you know, it would make pretty decent amount of sense if a car like this went electric. It's because, like, you know, the gasoline 4-cylinder is pretty decent. Like, I think the 4-cylinder is pretty good. It has pretty good power, pretty good economy. But if you could have a car like this, live like this, and not use any gas, I think that would be pretty awesome. But for the most part, this 2020 Mercedes GLC300 is a very comfortable, very nice driving vehicle. You know, if you're looking for a pretty comfortable, pretty easy to live with, pretty easy to drive, and a decently efficient SUV with some, like, little small crossover with some power, you should definitely take a look at the 2020 Mercedes GLC300. Whether that is, honestly, any of the GLCs really, whether if you're looking at this 300 or the 350e, or if you're going up to the AMG models like the 43 and the 63, the GLC is a very good SUV. It's very comfortable, it's very easy to use, and it's, you know, enough said. So if you like this video, hit me with the thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, keep finding me. Thanks for watching.